Hey bro, wanna hear my new record? It's fire. Heck yeah, man, let's hear it. Alright, I'm just gonna set this up on the speaker real quick and... Alright, and here we go.
The Atlanta Falcons almost won,
wrong
but
one.
lost. The Atlanta Falcons almost won, but lost. The Atlanta Falcons almost won, but lost.
This isn't supposed to be happening.
Why
do we keep hearing that? We keep hearing that over and over. I don't know, it's like a broken record. It keeps saying that. It literally keeps telling that us. Like, what's going on? It's a broken record, man. I don't know. What's going on, Falcons fans? Logan here. Welcome back to Rise Up Rundown. And if you're new here, welcome. So, this video was supposed to be uploaded yesterday, and the original video that I made, I don't want to say it was garbage, but I just wasn't very happy with it. So, I just decided to remake this video, even though the game recap is days later. I hope you guys don't mind that it is days later and that this video does entertain you nonetheless. So let's just get straight into it. As you heard from the intro, the Atlanta Falcons almost won, but they didn't. Yet again, they had a very close chance to close it out, but they didn't. Only this time, they got even more creative and instead of blowing the lead, they actually were coming back from a 28-3 lead. And despite every other NFL team making these miraculous wins, like the Detroit Lions' huge upset versus the Commanders, and then the Miami Dolphins' 35-14 comeback, and the Arizona Cardinals' comeback versus the Raiders, the New York freaking Jets out of all teams making a comeback against the Cleveland Browns, and the Dallas Cowboys with a backup quarterback beating the Super Bowl runner-up Cincinnati Bengals. Nope, the Atlanta Falcons just remain the Atlanta Falcons, and we do not pull off anything miraculous, except for a fun ride, and we were in for a fun ride because it looked like we were about to come back 28-3. Oh, we almost broke the curse, but no, I forgot it's the Falcons, so don't rely on it. I'm just kidding. But also I'm not kidding because that's how it feels. It's frustrating that this team just cannot close out games, and I guess you could argue that was kind of our first takeaway of this game is, it doesn't matter who the quarterback or the coach is or whatnot. I don't know if it's like culture or roster talent or mindset or what, but this has been going on for years. The Atlanta Falcons just cannot close games, and it's so frustrating. So that we literally got to get to the bottom of that. So I guess you could argue that's the first takeaway, but let's get over the other takeaways that I saw from this game. And despite it being a good game and even though it was a loss, there were a lot of positive takeaways, but I'll go over the bad first. The first bad thing is Marcus Mariota is not going to turn around his career. Sorry. I almost made that a bold prediction in my bold predictions video saying Marcus Mariota is going to turn his career around, but I wanted to back away from it because at the same time, deep down inside, I knew what we were going to get. Just a quarterback that was very timid to use his abilities, but is an okay runner of the football, and, well, not a shocker. And here's Marcus Mariota, just not a very good, accurate quarterback and afraid to use most of his abilities, but he's an okay running quarterback, I guess. We literally already know what we got in Marcus Mariota. He's not turning anything around. He's a bridge quarterback. We are never going to see him again after this year, most likely. At least not for... at the very least, he is not going to stay in Atlanta for another year or two. Maybe he can be in the 2023 season, but that is it. And everyone's already like, oh, let's see Desmond Ridder. And I can't really, comment on Desmond Ridder. I don't really know what to expect of him. But I will say my prediction is that he's basically going to be like Marcus Mariota. He'll be a good runner of the football. He'll have some cool moments here and there, but, he's a third-round draft pick. The Falcons were never too committed to him, and if he really does do well here in Atlanta, then great, but my prediction is that he's kind of just a okay quarterback, and we'll probably be picking in the top 3 to get a Bryce Young or a CJ Stroud. At this point, a Stetson Bennett, I don't know. Because let's face it, this Falcons team we never really thought was a playoff team, but now I don't think it's all that controversial to say that they could be picking in the top 3, at least as of week 2 heading into week 3. By the way, I don't actually even know when Desmond Ridder is going to start. It's probably not even going to be next week, maybe not even versus the Browns, but sometime after that, sure. But this quarterback room is a mess. That's the first bad takeaway, really. And then the second bad takeaway, and this is what everyone's dogging on Arthur Smith for, Kyle Pitts is not being utilized. All right, I heard you. Arthur Smith does need to use Kyle Pitts for more than just a blocking tight end. I agree. Kyle Pitts is maybe even your best player on the team. Considering how AJ Terrell has been throughout the year, Kyle Pitts might be your best player on the team, and it's frustrating that we can't use him. This feels like Julio Jones in the 2017-2018 days all over again, where we just couldn't get him a touchdown. That's kind of what it feels like. So we have to find a way to get him utilized. And I know he's frustrated, but he's acting classy. But, you know, I would be frustrated too. Like, you were the highest drafted tight end ever, and this is what we're getting? No, like, come on. Like, I'm a big defender of Arthur Smith. I'm not going to go over my take on him anymore because I think you guys get it. But I also hold him accountable. Like, yeah, he does need to get Kyle Pitts more involved. We could be winning games. You know what we could have done is we could have thrown to Kyle Pitts on the last play versus the Rams instead of Bryan Edwards, and the Rams wouldn't have picked it off. But anyway, so just a thought. So yeah, Kyle Pitts needs to be utilized. But other than that, honestly, like, you know, I guess you could argue another bad takeaway is that the defense needs to figure itself out. But I mean, they did kind of figure things out in the second half of the game. Like, yeah, you know, in the scoreboard, they still let up 31 points. And really, in the second half, we only let up a touchdown and a field goal, I believe. So our defense did kind of figure things out. Like, they punched the ball and got some fumble recoveries. And I don't know, like, this defense was kind of figuring things out. So I guess that's a pro and con, is that defense is figuring itself out, but it's not quite there yet. So I don't know. But let's get into the actual positive takeaways I saw. The first positive takeaway I saw is that, honestly, despite Kyle Pitts, like, this offense has some weapons that are being utilized. Drake London statistically did do well last week, but this week I think it's safe to say he definitely did have a breakout game, getting, I believe, 86 yards, a touchdown, and a 2-point conversion. He was definitely being utilized. So that is proof that Arthur Smith can use first-round players, but, you know, and then I think Drake London hurdled a guy. Like, you know, he looked good, got his touchdown in his college hometown in a way. He played college at California is all I'm really saying. So I guess it was kind of a homecoming deal for him. So that was cool to see. And then, you know, Kadarrell Hodge made some pretty big plays here and there. Cordell Patterson didn't have as good of a game as he did last week. And yeah, you know, he had that one bad play where he, like, I mean, granted, the ball shouldn't have been thrown that quick to him as he was wide open. But still, like, he dropped it, you know, muffled it around, and it ended up being an interception. But other than that, Cordell Patterson had an okay game. Tyler Algier had some moments. But here's the thing I want to talk about, though, is the offensive line actually is pretty good this year, honestly. Like, you know, it's not great, but it's good. Like, Aaron Donald, I don't think had a sack in this game, right? He definitely didn't have his best game. And that was, we literally faced our two biggest challenges of the year, in my opinion. Like, you got Cam Jordan, who came off a 12.5 sack season, and then Marcus Davenport with 9 sacks. The Falcons didn't allow any sacks last week, and then this week against Aaron Donald and the reigning Super Bowl champions defensive line, like, we blocked pretty well, to be honest with you. So this offensive line has actually been pretty good. Looks like Drew Dahlman is the answer at center. And then Chris Lindstrom, of course, taking names and kicking butt, and Jake Matthews doing good. Caleb McGarry's kind of turning things around, so maybe he's gonna stay for another year. We'll see, but that left guard position still needs to be figured out. But yeah, this offensive line has actually been pretty good. Yeah, that was a cool thing to note. The other positive takeaway is that this team does have a lot of fight in them. I know we didn't win the last 2 games, but I don't think anyone's debating that we didn't fight for it, you know? Like, we almost won versus the Saints, and we almost won versus the Rams, the reigning Super Bowl champions, in LA. And I know the Rams don't have, like, the greatest home field advantage ever, but that's still a long flight from Atlanta to LA. With a roster like this, like, we shouldn't have been even close, really, but we almost came back, and it's just kind of nice to see that this team is at least fighting. So this looks like it might be the 2021 Detroit Lions. So they'll fight, they'll be competitive, but how many games will they win is the real question. But I mean, they also got Aiden Hutchinson later afterwards, and maybe they'll start being, somewhat respectable this year. So maybe the same story could apply for the Falcons next year, get a good draft pick and maybe be somewhat respectable next year. We'll see. But for 2022, we're looking pretty competitive. And I'd say that I think we actually are a better team this year than we were last year. Arthur Smith, and this is my last positive takeaway, is that Arthur Smith and this coaching staff, I know there's complaints, but I think they are at least trying to make adjustments. All right, whatever. I hear your complaints about Kyle Pitts and how he's not being utilized. I already talked about that. I'm not going to go further into it. But everything else, I mean, this offense, back-to-back weeks, they scored a lot of points. And this is with Marcus Mariota as their quarterback and an offensive line that everyone said wasn't supposed to be very good. And a receiving core that a lot of people said was one of the worst. Defense, they said it was one of the worst. Point is, everyone said the Falcons might have had the worst roster in the league. And this coaching staff is at least trying to make adjustments. Dean Pease coming to the field to coach now. And, maybe didn't have a great first half versus the Rams, but hey, he still turned it around in the second half. And then Arthur Smith, despite how he's utilizing Kyle Pitts, in my humble opinion, I think that he's actually coaching pretty well throughout the majority of the game. It's just he could use Kyle Pitts better, and that's it, honestly. So those are my very honest takeaways, but let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Other than that, I will see you guys with a video this Friday at 11 o'clock a.m. Eastern. Love and appreciate you all for the support, and as always, rise up.